everyone, we're back in Freddie's workshop today, and because I'm down here for the weekend we thought we'd take on the opportunity just to have a look at the Mark III issues with the subframes. We've had a lot of posts on the group recently about people failing their MOT because of these subframe problems with the Mark IIIs, or after getting new ones which aren't available. Freddie's got a Mark III Cross, so we're just going to have a look underneath, and hopefully this information that he can give to you will help you if you're looking to buy one yourselves. You might be able to look on the ones you're looking at, or if you have one of these and you're worried about the subframe, you'll know the places to inspect them, and we'll highlight a few parts where the Mark IIIs often go wrong or might fail on welding and things like that. Stuff that's a bit more serious that you might not be able to do on your drive or by yourself, that a garage might have to sort out for you. We'll just have a look under this now and we'll see what we can come up with for you. Right, Freddie, this is your Cross, which you've got in daily use, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how many miles has this done, this one?
It's done 148,000.
And it's the 1.3 multi-jet diesel.
Yeah.
Obviously you're a mechanic yourself, so you can look after this vehicle, but with these ones especially, they've got the extra bits of bodywork on the headlights and the backlights. They've got extra skirts and stuff, which none of this is available to get really.
No.
We know that we can get some of the headlight surrounds and the rear light surrounds from companies. I think they reproduce them in Poland, do they?
I don't know if to reproduce them. It's just a case of finding them off cars, and obviously there's probably more of them in Europe than there is here, so you're more likely to find one.
So it's going to be an abroad job to replace any of these, because these are specific only to the Mark III Cross.
The actual light units are off a Fiat Coupe.
Oh, the actual lenses and the lights themselves,
Yeah, I think so, that's correct. But yeah, all the plastics, they're only fitted to these.
But essentially these vehicles are the same as the petrol 4x4.
Yeah.
From 2000, in this country, from 2005 54 to 2012, is that correct?
Yes, they might have stopped the 4x4 a little bit earlier, 2010, 2011 I think.
Okay.
But
they're the same floor panel.
Exactly the same car,
Right, we're under the Cross, so we're going to run through with Freddie now, and he's going to talk us through all the bits that you guys need to look out for if you're buying one of these, and if you own one. If you do have access to a ramp, then you can inspect these sections yourself or jack the car up and have a look to see what your state yours is in, essentially. Right, so we're at the back of the car at the moment. This is even though it's a multi-jet diesel Cross, it's got the ELD, which is
slightly different to a petrol one. Well, actually, the very late petrol ones also have the ELD, but the majority of the petrol ones are the viscous. So the only difference is the diff, basically. So this has got a hydro electric clutch basically in there, which uses the oil pressure in the diff to engage the four-wheel drive, which is controlled by the ECU on a solenoid there.
And is all that mounted on that rear subframe?
Yes. So the subframe carries the diff. So basically the subframe, you've got these sort of two bars, one at the front, one at the back. As you can see, it's all quite crusty.
And all this that we can see here with the spring carriers, presumably is all part of the subframe.
Yeah, well, those are separate arms that bolt into the subframe,
Right, so the subframe's above that.
Yeah.
And this is the part which is going at the moment, these rear subframes. So that's that bit there, is it? That's the mounting of it?
So that's your front mounting there. And then you've got the rear mounting, which also carries the anti-roll bar and the rear mount for the diff. So I think generally they go on this rear bar first. I think we've seen these anti-roll bar mountings actually break off because these tubes just go so rotten. So that's probably the first place to look.
So this is, if you just highlight the anti-roll bar there.
This is the anti-roll bar here. And obviously if that's detached, that's obviously an MOT failure. And any holes in the subframe are an MOT failure because it's a major structural point.
So this is one of the subframe mountings, this bolt here, and then this tube that comes
across to the other side.
All the way along here. Okay, so we're in front of the back wheel on this side, and we can see the large section of the subframe here onto the mounting, which is behind the back of the sill.
Yeah.
And this one on this vehicle is obviously a lot of surface rust, but the structure of it, generally you think it's okay for it?
Yeah, seems to be. I mean, I haven't poked it with a screwdriver, but it's not falling to bits. Ideally it could do with being removed and blasted or galvanised, you know, which would make it last forever.
But looking up here through this lens, as you can see, all of this rear suspension, differential, all the exhaust, everything is going to have to come off to access that subframe, to remove the subframe, to fix it.
It's a fairly major job to take it out and strip it all down. And obviously you're going to be battling seized bolts and rusty stuff, you know, so it's not a simple job.
It's beyond really driveway mechanics, would you say?
Well, depends how experienced you are. I'm sure it's doable, but you're gonna, you know, it's certainly not a beginner job. I wouldn't say. Just purely because you are going to encounter seized bolts and stuff like that. That's going to be difficult to sort out if you haven't got the kit and the know-how.
So you can see the subframe mounting is here, and then we're looking now at the back of the structure of the sills, which is where the ramp's holding the vehicle up at the moment, because a number of the earlier Mark 3s, so 2005 for example, say 2008, 2009, are now suffering from sill, or inner sill especially, rot. So that's all in this area, just here, and also behind the
behind the trim. I think they suffer a lot from the outer sill, which is obviously hidden by these side skirts. So I can see up there there's a gap there for the jacking point, and it appears on this car that it's fine. I hope that it is. But certainly, you know, we've still got plenty of structure there. There's no worries of picking the car up there at all. And it's, as you can see, it's not, this on pretty much every car you'll see damage on the sill where it's been jacked up, but you can see there's no rust there on that edge, so it's pretty sound really.
So looking in, as far as prospective buyers are concerned, this outer edge will essentially be the first place which would suggest to you that this car might have some rust problems. And if you are able to, upon inspection, when you go to view a car, look at this area, get on the ground and look under it if possible, to see the condition of the rear of the sill section. I mean,
if you've got rust on this lip and it's sort of blowing apart with rust, then you know it's going to go deeper. So it's a good indication of what it's like, basically.
Other than that, on the back end of these Pandas, as long as they've not seen a life of off-road, you aren't really going to have much.
Like this car.
It's got a bit of a dent there, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But you won't really find, apart from consumables such as brakes, shock absorbers, things like that.
Exhaust.
And the exhaust.
Like that, Anti-roll bar drop links. You go through those, but it's all cheap and easy.
That's all stuff you can repair for a reasonable price. Okay, we're moving up to the front area now, and these, obviously when they're in daily use such as this one, it's going to be mucky. There are sections of muck all over this, unfortunately, but we can view it as you probably would view if you were looking to buy one, because it's very rare that you'd see somebody actually get under here with a jet wash and clean it prior to putting it up for sale. So you might encounter this situation that you're looking into if you're getting your fingers back here and having to dig through a load of muck like this to find out whether the vehicle's solid or not. As with all Pandas and many Fiats, this inner sill is where it starts, and the outer sill, which is hidden by this plastic area, is always going to contain evil rust
Yes.
and rotten metal.
Yes.
So
Well,
that's-
with any car, usually what you can see on the outside is only a fraction of what's actually going on the inside.
So this is a good place to inspect, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll look at this front subframe now. So if you can illustrate to everybody where it is.
So this is the front subframe here. So it bolts to basically the front of the chassis rails there, and then up on the chassis rails in the wheel arch. And the subframe carries the bottom arm mounts and the steering rack, and also the lower gearbox mount. So as you can probably tell, it's a pretty vital part. The subframe on a 4-wheel drive is totally different to a 2-wheel drive, mainly because it needs the space for the prop shaft. And I also believe it does lower the suspension slightly to give it that bit of extra ride height.
That's a good point, actually, because a number of people have asked about whether a 2-wheel drive subframe will fit a 4-wheel drive.
It won't, purely because of the prop shaft, as far as I'm aware. It would probably bolt in, but then it's not going to fit with the gearbox because a 2-wheel drive gearbox doesn't have this on the back of it. So that'll be, I presume that they will be flat. I've not actually seen one myself. So that's not an option. Obviously, there's lots of 2-wheel drive cars about. So you find one of those more easily, but it's of no use.
We're just behind the near side front wheel at this point, and we're going to look at these bottom arm mountings onto the subframe.
So here we've got this is obviously the sump guard you have on the 4-wheel drive, which also bolts to the subframe, and then this is the bottom arm, which is mounted there, and this area seems to be most prone to corrosion and failure. I think they get weak with corrosion, and then it leads to cracking, which can mean that your front mounting here of this bottom arm is loose. So obviously you can understand that that'll cause some issues when you're driving.
So this is an area which you will be able to inspect visually yourself.
Yeah, so you can lock, it's on the ground, you can lock the wheels over and you'll be able to look in there and see how rusty it is. I mean, you can see on this we've got original paint there under the dirt, so we know that's all solid. But if you've got thick scaly rust, then it's probably going to be thin and a potential issue. The other thing you need to look out for is poor repairs. This has also got a captive nut in the back here for this bolt, and if that gets damaged or comes loose, people will cut holes in here so they can get a spanner on it, and then they don't weld any metal back in and loses its strength. Likewise, if it's failed an MOT, someone might bodge it up with whatever, so you need to be wary of that, because if that arm detaches, you're obviously not going to have much control of the car anymore.
So recently we've just had a chap contact us about this, because his had actually cracked across here, and he was considering whether a new subframe was available or whether he could repair it. So what, in your view, not with the knowledge you have of mechanics and MOTs, what do you believe is the right way to deal with this?
So a lot of people say, I mean, I'm not an MOT tester, but I've heard people say that you can't repair a subframe. It's not allowed; it'll just automatically fail if you've repaired it. Now, in my opinion, these are welded together anyway when they're built. So if you can repair it properly, with decent welding and done by someone who really knows what they're doing, I see no reason why that's not a suitable repair. The problem is, if it's rusty in one area, it's probably thin in others, and it's never going to be as strong. The whole thing's never going to be as strong because it'll still be thin elsewhere. So that's the consideration. But to me, there is no reason you couldn't repair that and it'd be perfectly strong. Now, if your MOT tester doesn't want to pass it, then that's his decision, isn't it? But certainly the thing is, he can't be sure that it's been properly repaired. So if he doubts the repair, then he's going to fail it. So it's down to your individual MOT tester what he's happy to pass and fail, basically.
It would be fairly obvious if somebody had repaired one of these, and if you were going to buy one, you'd be able to see it, wouldn't you?
Yes. Unless someone's done a very good job and you can't tell, But it's unlikely
it should be blindingly obvious, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's unlikely that someone will go to that length. You know, I imagine most sort of everyday garage wouldn't really be interested in doing it purely because of a liability thing. You know, they don't want to put their name to something that potentially could have drastic effects. But the problem is you can't get these subframes. So what do? You know, the cars are getting scrapped because the subframes are on, which seems a bit silly to me. But
in order to repair this subframe properly, you would have to.
You'd have to remove it.
You'd have to remove it. So that in itself looks to me, I'm no mechanic, but it looks to be a big task to me. Does that?
It's probably not as big as you think, but again, you've got problems with seize bolts. These bolts here like to seize up and you can't get them out, and then you rip the nuts out of the chassis legs, and then you've got to repair that, so it just sort of snowballs. Taking the subframe off, because the engine and everything stay in place, it's not actually that big of a job. You know, if the bolts came out, you'd have it off quicker than you think, I think. But yeah, it's still a job, you know. And obviously the value of these isn't huge, so you quickly exceed the value of it. So it doesn't make sense for people to spend the money.
Right, so we know the subframe for these is £1,680 from Fiat.
For
one subframe.
If they're available still. And that might be a price they're given. That will be coming from Italy, but it depends if they've got any left, basically.
Yeah. So that obviously it can be half or more the value of the vehicle, and this is what's killing them.
Yeah.
So in order to protect your car, if you do have one, then ideally it would be to take that out if it's in good fettle. Galvanise it.
Yeah, you can galvanise it, or even just to blast it and properly powder coat it would be best. You can just underseal them, but you need to get it clean first. There's no point just putting undersealing paint on rusty metal. So yeah, ideally, you know, you take them both out, have them blasted and powder coated, maybe zinc primed, or you can have them galvanised, which is actually quite cheap to do, and then they will not rust again.
And if you're a prospective buyer looking for one of these, and somebody has obviously said, "I've put a new subframe on this," you want to see the receipt.
Yeah.
You want to see the receipt of any work that's been carried out for any welding or any repair work to these. You know where the highlighted areas are from this video.
Yeah.
So dig deep and find out, because you're spending a lot of money on something like this. These are going for £3,500, £4,000 at the moment, even the earlier ones. That's a lot of money for essentially a car that's 15 years old.
They're old cars now, you know. So they're suffering from these.
They might be a practical car, they might be a cheap car to run, but you're still forking out for them when they might not even last a year. Let's face it.
And because the parts are specific to the Panda 4x4, no one's making them, and there's very few about that are any good, you know. More common cars, people remake the rear axles, and you know, like a two-wheel drive Panda, they have problems with the rear axles, but you can buy them brand new.
Yeah.
For not very much money, 100 quid or something, and you can have a new axle. So, but can't do that with these.
Strange.
Yeah.
So aside from the front and rear subframes and associated suspension components, which are essentially a consumable item, we're going to look at the prop shaft, because a number of these get sold, and you'll see on the advert, prop shaft removed.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is because these centre support bearings, as with the Mark IIs, they go.
They fail.
They fail the MOT.
The rubbers perish, and then they fail an MOT.
So that's the rubber.
That's the rubber
support.
there. Yeah. This prop shaft is a few years old. I'll replace this, and you can see there's actually already perishing there on that rubber. Obviously that's still fine, but you'll basically get a gap there, and the whole thing will be sat down, and you could get vibrations and things like that.
So we know how much these are. Well, they're about 230 quid. These full shaft.
Yeah, for a complete shaft. Yeah, which is the easiest option. You can split them, but similar to a Mark II Panda, the replacement bearings you buy are very cheap, and they don't last very long. So it's just easier just to buy a shaft and put it in, and then you're sorted for another good few years.
So if you can access these upon inspection when you're looking to buy the car, then get hold of it and give it a good bang about, see if it moves in that middle.
It's not flapping around too much.
And of course, see if it's there at all.
Yeah. And also check the universal joints. The original prop shaft on this car, I had to replace it because the universal joint is seized up, basically. So when it was rotating, it was sticking and causing a huge vibration. And you can't. Those universal joint cups are peened in, so you can't easily replace them like you could on an older car. So I just replaced the whole shaft, but make sure there's sort of no red rust around there, because that's a sign that the universal joint's failing. These are the CV joints that are on each end of the prop shaft, one at the back, one at the front. They have a rubber gaiter here, which protects them. So you want to make sure that those are intact, they're not split, there's no grease coming out of them. You can probably, I think you'll be able to get a UCV joint if you needed one. I don't think they really wear out. I've never seen one that's worn out. And you could probably get a boot as well. But generally, if that's knackered, there's probably the rest of it's probably not far behind. So sometimes it's just easier just to put a complete new shaft on it. It saves messing around. And
it's worth saying while we're at the back again, with the rear differential.
Yeah.
You can't get it in England unless you buy it from breakers.
I mean, there seems to be quite a few petrol ones with the viscous on. They're more readily available. But these ones with the ELD, just non-existent. There's just none of them.
And this is cross-specific, Mark 3 cross-specific. We aren't sure whether they actually match with the Mark 4s. There was speculation whether they did.
I'm not sure without trying one. I don't know. I don't know if the ratios are different or, there could be a number of differences. It's very similar, but I couldn't say if it's compatible or not. It's also worth noting, you need to make sure these boots are all intact and there's no grease coming out of those, much like the front ones. They're the same. These can be, if you're off-roading in it, you can get stuff can hit those and split them, and then you lose all your grease. And again, with these being just for a 4x4, it's going to be difficult to get a new shaft and new joints. They're not going to be readily available. So it's worth looking after them. So you're not ending up spending a fortune trying to find some. So finally, for underneath, we're just looking at this sump guard. This is the same from the Cross and the Mark 3 4x4. Yeah.
But it's often, again, it's another part which gets taken off these and left off.
Left off, yeah. So all four-wheel drive should have a sump guard on them.
And it should look like this.
Yeah. Well, actually, this one is slightly reinforced. I've welded some extra bars across this to make it a bit stronger. It's also missing quite a few of the bolts, which have fallen out and not replaced. But yeah, it should have 4 bolts at the front and 2 at the back. But they tend to go rusty and snap off and stuff, and people don't bother replacing them, like me.
So that's worth checking underneath.
Yeah. And obviously, if it's got big damage, then you probably know the car's been off road, or it's because it tells you what the car's been doing. And I think not so much on a Mark 3 actually. I think a Mark 4 struggled. They actually go rotten, these subframes. Some guards do. They will actually rot away because they're only quite thin originally. So
it's a good modification, really, to actually reinforce.
Yeah. If you are off-roading, then a bit of extra bar. I think that's 6mm flat bar there. Is a good modification.
Since we're looking underneath, we've actually gone and cleaned the flipping thing.
First time in a long time.
How long since it's been cleaned, Freddie?
I think about 5 months.
Yeah, a while.
Not bad actually. Usually goes quite a bit longer than that.
Yeah. So we'll just have a look at a few parts in addition to what we've already discussed. Now this is the 1.3 16 valve multi-jet diesel.
Yeah.
Which is timing chain driven essentially.
Timing chain, yeah.
So we've got the changeover dates to that You're saying 100,000 miles ish?
I don't think there's actually a interval for them because it's meant to be lifetime, but generally at 100,000 miles they tend to need changing because they get very noisy and rattly, and if they snap it's major engine damage. They're a very small chain, so they stretch quite a lot, but not a massive job to change it really. You can do it with the engine in. You have to take the sump off, but I think the kit is about 130 quid or something like that, and it's probably a 3 or 4 hour job for a good mechanic to do it.
And then the petrol version is a fire engine,
Yeah.
fully integrated robotic engines,
Yeah.
such as the Mark IIs.
Yeah, the same.
And that's a non-interference, so
Yeah.
you can bust the cam belt off that
Yes.
and
Yeah.
change it at the side of the road essentially.
Yeah, basically, yeah, very simple.
So that's a job you can do at home.
Yeah.
As we were discussing before, a lot of bits on this front you can't get hold of worth thinking about if you're buying one of these.
Yeah, you won't get any of these bits very easily, so if any of those are broken or you're missing them, then you're going to struggle. I guess it might be possible to fit a standard front end on it if you wanted to do that.
I think our Elliot from our group, he did that, didn't he?
I think he put a cross front end on a standard car actually.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So that's
it's exactly. I think it's the same front panel. It's just it would all bolt on. I think.
Yeah, I know the two-wheel drive bonnet fit onto my cross.
Same bonnet. Yeah.
And then all these panels down the doors cross specific.
Yeah.
The Mark III two-wheel drive, you don't really get. Well, we haven't seen any door rust or anything yet on them, really, have we?
No, not really. They don't seem to suffer too much with that. Quite good, really.
The alloys are 15-inch on the crosses and 14-inch on the standard.
Yeah. So the cross has slightly bigger overall diameter, so that's where it gets a bit of extra height from over a standard car.
Well, we hope this brief look around the Mark III Cross has helped you if you're looking to buy one or you're looking for problems with yours. If there's anything else that you can think of and you want to ask us questions, then just post it in the comments down below, or you can join us on the Facebook group. There's a lot of discussion on these at the moment due to the prices and one thing and another, so just look us up, UK Panda 4x4 on Facebook and Instagram, and also give us a subscription on YouTube. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.